I played A Hat in Time, a 3D platformer which, spoiler alert, is one of my favourite games of all time. And after quite a while since I last played it, I finally wanted to play it again for a review for DUOMINUS, and it's just as good as I remember. In fact, in some parts of it might actually be better than the last time I played. In A Hat in Time, you play as Hat Kid, or Bow Kid if you so wish, where you're travelling through space with timepieces. However, due to a run-in with the Mafia in Mafia Town, you end up losing your timepieces as they scatter all across the world. And so you now need to travel to collect them all so you can get back home. Or wherever Hat Kid is destined to be. Throughout this adventure, you'll end up in various different locations, encountering all kinds of colourful characters, and let me tell you, this game does such a stupendous job at making sure that no level feels too similar from another one. In Mafia Town, you'll go from fighting the Mafia, to collecting these tickets to unlock vaults, to racing the Mafia, to taking on the Mafia boss himself so that Mustache Girl can shove his innards into a jar. This game does have a bit of a dark sense of humour at times. To turning off the taps to the town volcano so that everything stops becoming a lava-ridden wasteland. There's also Deadbird Studio with DJ Grooves and the Conductor, where those two are battling for the annual Bird Movie Award, and you end up being wrangled in to help both of them out, with your performances dictating who will end up winning the award, which I think is a really nice little detail. The Conductor brings you on with a murder mystery and a thrilling chase to defuse a bomb, while DJ Grooves sends you on a PR quest, and does a fun parade where you just have to try and survive for as long as possible whilst things get crazier and crazier. There's the Subcon Forest, where the Snatcher ends up taking your soul and insists that you do his bidding in order to get it back. But of course, he's being manipulative, and he plans on popping your head off at the end of your encounters with him. But in that, you'll be disposing of fire spirits, you'll go around fighting a haunted toilet, you dive deep into a well, and you even have a pretty thrilling horror sequence when you go into Vanessa's manor, Vanessa being the Snatcher's ex. It's complicated, and I won't get too deep into spoiler territory there, because there is some fun little wrinkles to explore. The game also has time rifts, which come in two different variations. There are the platforming puzzle ones, which I always find to be a blast, because again, the game gives you so many options that it ends up being quite a breeze. And then there are the character-specific ones, which essentially give you a little look into why a character is the way they are. You know, so you can learn more about why the Mafia came and took over the island and turned it into Mafia Town. You can find out why Mustache Girl is so vengeful. You can find out what happened to the Snatcher, and so much more. It's really a great way to get to dive into these characters more and find out hidden complexities. And there's even an open world segment, which I do feel is still the weakest part of the game, as there's not really any majorly strong characters. I do like how inventive the idea is, and I actually have been getting more and more acclimated to it as time goes on. It's probably my least favourite part of the main game, but it's really not bad. And then of course it all builds up to the final boss battle with Mustache Girl, which feels suitably like an epic final boss fight. It's pretty easy, but it all comes together with some fun psychedelic visuals, and the music is great. Like let's just get into it. The music across the board in A Hat in Time is absolutely incredible, and especially in the boss fight. Battle for Award 42, the fight against the Snatcher, the final boss fight against Mustache Girl, they all have incredible themes, and I can't think of a single dud soundtrack. Hell, even in Queen Vanessa's Manor, the track when you're being hunted down is a great way to jump scare you if you put that into a music playlist, put it on shuffle. Trust me, it's happened to me before. I was walking along and suddenly got blasted by the Vanessa chase music, and I nearly had a heart attack. My point is that there isn't a single bad period in this game. Nearly every single level feels notably different from each other, creating an experience which never really gets old. And before you know it, you've beaten the game in just a few hours. The gameplay of Hat Kid herself is honestly a blast. She controls exceedingly well. They gave you a lot of tools to work with, and nearly every hat gets a fair amount of usage throughout the experience, so there's not too many abilities that feel underutilized. Now, of course, if I was going to get back into Hat in Time, I, of course, once again had to replay the DLC. And even though it didn't come out first, the way they've structured it means that I ended up going back to Nyakuza Metro. And I remember at the time when I first played this, I hated Nyakuza Metro. I found the open world at the time far too open and confusing. I actually didn't have that problem this time. I still worry that for newer players who are going to be playing Nyakuza Metro for the first time, it may still be a little bit daunting. The world on it is so massive and it can get a little bit maze-like that I think for newer players it could lead to some frustration. But once you start to figure out the world, it all makes a lot more sense than you realise. Plus, as long as you just keep using Hat Kid's top hat, if you do think you're starting to lose your way, it's a very good way to just point you back in the right direction. So I didn't really have any problems. And I remember even that Nyakuza Metro does have a map power-up that you can buy if it really is getting to be a bit overwhelming. In Nyakuza Metro, you end up meeting the Empress, who might be the most intimidating character, in my opinion, of the entire cast. She is someone who just seems so powerful, what with the fact that she has all of these minions that can find you at any moment as she wrangles you into her schemes. Anytime you pick up a timepiece, her goons will come out and say, yep, you know the drill, hand the timepiece over, it's going to the Empress. And it helps to make the Empress feel just overwhelming. Like, no matter where you go in the Metro, they'll find you eventually, which culminates in the boss fight where you're running to try and escape the Metro, and no matter where you turn, you're seeing, the Empress's minions watching you, waiting to see who's going to take you out. And then there's the Empress, of course, firing rockets at you as she's completely lost her mind. She's definitely got to be in my opinion, she might be the coolest of the actual villains in this game. Another little fun detail that I like is if you go up to the Empress in the jewelry shop and you try to hit her, no matter how fast you try to get away, she will insta-kill you. And I think, again, that just lends to how cool the character is. Then there's a Steal the Deal DLC, which is weaker. However, I don't think it's that bad either. There's the Seal part, where you go on a cruise, which consists of a small handful of levels. It's much shorter than your standard session with any of the other worlds. But I feel like it's a lot of fun to just roam around the ship and eventually capsize it. It does feel like there is more that could have been done with this, admittedly. I do feel like we kind of missed out on maybe some more shenanigans on the boat, but I won't complain too hard as what we got was still pretty fun. Then there's the deal part of the DLC, which at the time when this DLC came out, got a lot of people going crazy. Basically, the Snatcher is back and has a whole new set of contracts for you, with the twist of these contracts being that you'll be going back to old levels with harder stipulations. For instance, that lava tap one I mentioned before, now you're really feeling the heat. The longer you spend without cooling yourself off, the hotter you get until you die. So you end up having to dunk yourself into pools of water whilst you're trying to turn off all the taps. Every boss fight is notably more difficult now. And just in general, each level has this little twist to it to make it so that you're more likely to throw your controller at the wall. It's nothing that I'm going to go too crazy about, but it does add even more replay value, which, given that I've already completed the main game several times over, I will admit that as time gets on and I've gotten better at the Seal the Deal DLC, I do appreciate the added gameplay and touch-ups to levels that I've played time and time again, keeping them fresh. Finally, there's the Vanessa's Curse DLC, and I'm going to keep this one brief. Unfortunately, Vanessa's Curse is a multiplayer-themed DLC, where the idea is that you would play with a bunch of people online, the goal being that you would try and collect all the crowns, and the cursed players would try and just tag all of the regular players to make them cursed as well, with the idea being that if the cursed players do well, it can very quickly get out of hand as they infect everyone else, and if the non-cursed players do well, they'll quickly grab up all the crowns and manage to evade all of the cursed players. To be honest with you, I don't know how much mileage I would personally get out of this. I think it was a cool little feature to try and, make the most of player-made creations, as this was meant to be part of a player's DLC thing. However, there's nobody playing this. I went on, I didn't put any restrictions on who could join, and not only was there no one who would join my party so I couldn't play, there wasn't even a game currently ongoing for me to spectate. Nobody's playing this now. So it's impossible for me to properly review this. And unfortunately, the player DLC thing does seem to have completely been abandoned, as this came out back in late 2021, and there hasn't been any created DLC since. I'd love to see some more, but unfortunately, that seems to have been the end of the road. It's a shame, as it's a pretty damp way of ending things, but let me stress, every other part of A Hat in Time was, in my opinion, an absolute blast. The main game, in my opinion, is as close to a perfect platformer experience that I've personally experienced. The Seal the DL DLC, whilst a bit short on the seal part and can be a bit frustrating on the deal part, it's still a ton of fun, and I love the extra challenge that I get from that DLC. And Nyakuza Metro has such an awesome open world, and probably one of my favourite villains of the entire game. Overall, with the incredible gameplay, the crazy variety, it's a very nice graphical style in my opinion, and a soundtrack that is full of banger after banger after banger after banger, I can't recommend this game highly enough. To me, it might very well be still in my top 10 favourite games of all time. It's such a incredible experience. I have very little bad things to say about it. Honestly, I could see myself playing this game. I'll probably end up replaying this game again and again and again for many, many years to come. If I were you, I wouldn't just get A Hat in Time, I would go out of my way to get the Hat in Time Ultimate Edition for 30% off, so that you can get the entire experience all in one at a reduced price. That's how highly I recommend this. In my opinion, if you love platformers and you haven't tried A Hat in Time yet, don't waste any more time, pun not intended, and dive into this experience.